They say you can't fight the system, but I broke a man's wrist on my front porch for trying. You'd be surprised what that teaches you about justice. This all started when I moved out to Crystal Lake. I was looking for peace after the divorce. After selling off the company, I needed quiet, space, and a place where nobody could tell me how to live. I found a cabin on 23 acres, backed up to a lake that looked like something out of a postcard. No neighbors in shouting distance, no noise but the birds and my fishing boat engine in the morning. I thought I'd made it. Turns out, I'd just stepped into a war I didn't even know was happening. Let me back up a sec. The place I bought. It wasn't part of the local HOA. That was the first thing I checked, because if I wanted someone knocking on my door every time I hung up a wind chime, I'd have stayed in the suburbs. My deed was older than the HOA itself. That land was mine, and the law said they had no authority over me. Or so I thought. 2 weeks after I moved in, I met Walter. Older guy, Vietnam vet, sharp as hell, lived down the road and brought me a casserole from his wife. We sat on the porch, and after a couple glasses of whiskey, he leaned in and said, "You need to watch out for Margaret Blackwood. She runs the HOA like it's a damn cult." I laughed it off. I mean, how bad could it be? An ex-prosecutor with a clipboard. Please. I'd negotiated contracts worth millions. I wasn't scared of a homeowners association. But Walter just shook his head. She tried to buy your land 2 years ago. Owner refused. She hasn't let it go. 3 days later, Margaret herself showed up. Black SUV, heels crunching gravel, flanked by 2 guys built like security guards at a Vegas club. Clipboard thick enough to choke a horse. She marched up like she owned the place, and the thing is, in her mind, maybe she did. "Mr. Wash," she said, not even introducing her goons. "I'm here to inspect your property for community compliance." I told her, politely, that she had the wrong address. "This land predates your HOA, I'm not part of it." Her smile tightened so much I thought her cheekbones might snap. "Environmental protection supersedes property exemptions," she said, like she was quoting scripture. And that's when I saw it. She wasn't inspecting anything, she was casing the place. Measuring distances with some kind of digital laser, taking photos of my dog, counting trees. It wasn't about code violations. It was about control. And maybe something more, something personal. The real twist came in the mail. Official-looking envelope. Emergency Environmental Compliance Notice. Pages of legal jargon accusing me of contaminating the lake with my sunscreen, my fishing boat, even the hammock I'd strung between 2 trees. And the signature at the bottom. Margaret Blackwood, Environmental Compliance Officer, a title she clearly made up for herself. I knew I needed help, so I hired Dr. Emma Rodriguez, an environmental scientist from Austin who specialized in busting these kinds of scams. She showed up with more equipment than a Mars rover, did a full study of my land, soil, water, everything. The result? My property was pristine. Cleaner than state standards. Sustainable dock, zero pollution. Emma said if anything, I was improving the ecosystem. But she found something else, and this is where things got real dark, real fast. Margaret had filed the exact same violations, word for word, in 3 other communities across Texas. Same timeline. Same threats. Same buyout offers from companies with names like Crystal Lake Environmental Trust. Turns out Margaret had created a network of fake environmental groups that would pressure homeowners to sell, then flip the properties to developers. She'd done it to dozens of families. She'd built an empire, and now I was standing in the middle of her last conquest. I went to the next HOA meeting, figured I'd call her out in public. Margaret stood at the podium like she was announcing a court verdict. "We must preserve our lake," she said, looking right at me. even if it means difficult choices. When I stood up and asked how an HOA had the authority to file federal-level environmental citations, she didn't flinch. The ordinance was approved by the county, she said, like that explained everything. And that's when I realized she wasn't acting alone. See, Margaret's brother. Special Agent Timothy Thompson. FBI. He showed up at my door 3 days later with a suit, a badge, and a thinly veiled threat. "We're investigating federal violations," he said, looking like he was already writing my conviction. It felt rehearsed, too polished. I asked for evidence. He gave me attitude. Emma started digging. She found out Timothy had been involved in 2 previous land seizures that coincidentally ended up in the hands of companies linked to Margaret. It was a family operation using environmental law to bully people off their land. And now they were gunning for me. Then came the big move. Margaret, her 2 thugs Travis and Bobby, and a man in what looked like a police uniform showed up at my cabin waving a federal seizure warrant. It looked real but smelled like cow manure. When I asked to verify it with the courthouse, Margaret lost her cool. "This is an emergency," she snapped. "We don't have time for bureaucracy." That's when Travis stepped forward, zip ties in hand, and told me to put my arms behind my back. "Now, you gotta understand, I don't go looking for trouble. But I also don't back down on my own land." 8 years of jiu-jitsu kicked in. I grabbed Travis's wrist, turned, and popped it like a wishbone. He went down screaming. Bobby lunged, I swept his leg, pinned him, and applied just enough pressure to make sure he wouldn't be charging anyone again anytime soon. The fake cop ran. Margaret stood frozen, watching her plan crumble. And right then, Walter appeared at the edge of my driveway, phone in hand, filming everything. "You boys better think carefully," he said, voice calm. "Because impersonating a federal officer carries 10 years. And I've got it all recorded." Margaret tried calling 911, claiming terrorism, assault, federal obstruction, you name it. But the funny thing, the real feds were already watching. See, Walter had friends. He tipped off the FBI months ago when Margaret tried the same thing with his neighbors. They'd been building a case. And Travis, turns out he'd been secretly recording every conversation with Margaret, just in case she threw him under the bus. His insurance policy ended up being their downfall. That afternoon, Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI's Public Corruption Unit showed up. Come. Real credentials. No clipboard power trip. She told me flat out, "We've been monitoring this group. And thanks to your resistance, we now have the evidence we need to dismantle the entire operation." Margaret, Travis, Bobby, and even Agent Timothy Thompson were arrested within the week. Racketeering. Fraud. Conspiracy. Civil rights violations. The works. The HOA was dissolved. The shell companies were exposed. And the families they bullied. They're getting compensated through court orders funded by the very people who tried to steal their homes. So yeah, I'm still here. Still waking up to lake mist and morning coffee. Still walking the property lines of land I fought for. And if there's one thing I learned, it's that sometimes you have to break a wrist to defend your peace. Now here's the question I want to leave you with: when someone abuses power under the banner of law, is standing up to them a crime or a duty? You tell me. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear where you stand on justice, community, and what you do when the law gets hijacked by the wrong people.